It's not 2012 all over again. Don't be looking for Russell Wilson 2.0, but all eyes will still be on Jalen Milroe playing the entirety of Seattle's preseason finale in Green Bay. What should fans be watching from the dazzling number 6? We'll be breaking it all down here on our Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, 12. This is Corbin Smith, host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast, your daily Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Glad to be joined here on our Blue Friday show by my co-host Nick Lee, and a special thanks to all the 12s who are listening in, whether you're down in Tumwater, Washington, or you are listening in Fort Worth, Texas. We greatly appreciate each and every one of you for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. Seattle set to wrap up its preseason docket in Green Bay tomorrow. Lambeau Field facing off against the Packers. Won't be seeing any starters in this game, but still plenty of players that have a lot to play for, both looking at roster spots and the practice squad. We'll be looking at Jalen Milroe's first full game as a Seahawks quarterback and what to expect on that front, other key storylines, and playing a spirited game of what's the odds. Without further ado, let's get to it. Now for your lead story here on our Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. Back in 2012, there was a certain third-round pick by the name of Russell Wilson that came into the preseason for the Seahawks behind Matt Flynn, who had been given big money in free agency by the Seahawks. Russell Wilson ended up beating him out with a dazzling preseason. There's still plenty of fans out there that are having pictures like that in their head when it comes to Jalen Milroe. I'm going to tell you right now that is absolutely not going to happen. The Seahawks, there's a reason that Drew Lock and Sam Darnold are not going to be playing in this preseason finale. Those guys are clearly the number 1 and number 2 quarterbacks, and Jalen Milroe is clearly the number 3. He needs the experience. He needs the snaps. Now, could Jalen Milroe do what Russell Wilson did in preseason games and go out here against Green Bay and just absolutely light it up? Oh, yeah. It's definitely possible that he could do that. We could see Jalen Milroe go out there throwing the ball all over the place. We could see him running around everybody, racking up a bunch of scores, both with his arm and his leg, especially with Green Bay not likely to play many, if any, of their starters either. This is an opportunity to see what this dual threat quarterback can do. But I think really at the end of the day, I'm not even looking at stats for Jalen Milroe, Nick. I'm looking at the way that he carries himself as a quarterback, because if he's ever going to be a starter in the league, that is where it's going to boil down to. He has all the skills. He has all the tools to be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. That is undeniable. It's turning those tools into actual quarterback play and the things you have to be able to do to run an NFL offense and be able to complete passes against NFL defenses. That's where he's got to continue to show growth, and he's not going to get there unless he's getting a lot of reps like he's going to get against Green Bay.
Right, and this is a huge opportunity for him to really put all the herbs and spices into his NFL experience gumbo pot. You know, it's just getting more reps, getting more, just getting that experience, the seasoning in there. And the coaches, what do we got in this guy? And I'm going to look for 4 things, Corbin, really in this game. Wins and losses, toss that out, especially, if you have any visions of him connecting with JSN in this game, throw those away. That's not happening. But really, I do want to see how in sync he is with the receivers that'll play. Now, Torrey Horton, I think, as of now, is still out. I'm not sure I haven't seen an update on his status for the game itself. But it would be really cool to see him connect with Milroe. But if not, guys like Cody White, Derek Young, Ricky White and company, how does he look with those players? And is he in sync with them? Is he on time with his throws? Are they on the same page? Of course, that's going to be a tall task to look that way all the time, because he's a rookie. This is August of his rookie season in the NFL. So he hasn't really had time yet to really build into that. It takes weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and maybe even years. To that, and also with that accuracy, so far he's been fairly accurate. 60% completion rate through 15 passes so far. I believe Pro Football Focus had it where he's had 1 turnover-worthy play so far in limited action. I would like to see what that looks like in an extended sample size. It'll be fun to dive into the numbers afterwards. Now, if he goes out there and goes 25 for 30 for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, we'll probably be losing our minds, but also, there's going to be some salt to be taken with that. But I want to dive into, some of the deeper numbers there, but how accurate is he? Is he hitting those tight NFL size windows? And 2 more things is how diverse the scheme can be with him. What does the playbook look like? What are maybe some of the Jalen Milroe specific plays that they maybe are planning on running sometime this season, throwing him in there in the goal line, short yardage, things like that, the tush push or whatever the Seattle version of that could look like, and just seeing the diversity of the playbook and what it could look like with him, and how much do the coaches trust him to run a lot of the things you've seen Darnold and Locke run with the offense. And then lastly, something maybe most importantly, is how he handles adversity, because we've seen it in the NFL, especially with a young guy. Even though it's preseason, it's a fast game. It's faster than college, of course. Even in the SEC with Alabama, there's a notch up to NFL preseason. How is he going to handle adversity? How is he going to handle a possible 3-and-out drive, or maybe even a turnover? And how does he bounce back from that? How does he fight back through adversity and bounce back? Because we see quarterbacks all the time, Corbin. A few have come through town here where one mistake kind of compounds into multiple, and they kind of lose their edge, lose their mental trap in there, and they kind of become loose with it. And will he maintain, even if he doesn't get adversity and face pressure? How does he do in the pocket? Is he composed? Is he going through his progressions, or is he seeing ghosts like his the starting quarterback I referred to many years ago? And how does he handle all that? That's kind of the stuff I'm looking for, more so than completions, yards, and touchdowns.
Yeah, I think you make some really good points here. The first thing that I am going to be watching is seeing what does Clint Kubiak put out there for the rest of the NFL to see. And this is kind of one of those interesting dynamics that goes against the grain, because typically NFL coaches want to be very secretive. Like, they treat what they do on the practice field like they are guarding state secrets. Like they're the CIA. But it's a little different when you're talking about a player like Jalen Milroe, because it adds more that a opposing defensive coordinator's got to worry about before planning for a regular season game. So Seattle might be sitting here thinking, you know what, Robert Saleh, 49ers, we're going to put some interesting wrinkles out here that you have to put in your game plan, because he's going to be active. We're going to have Jalen Milroe available. Maybe he won't be, but we'll see. We're going to put that threat out there, though. Oh, you saw him run a couple of these really nasty read option plays. You got to see a few of these other designed runs that we mixed in, and how we utilized him differently in the passing game. And then you're thinking in the back of your head as an opposing coordinator, like, I've got to worry about those legs. I've got to worry about the fact that he can pass the football. You put something else that they have to invest their minimal time in, game planning. And so, Mike McDonald kind of hinted at that with their tush push they did. He's like, yeah, we put that on film. Like, he was basically saying, like, we're going to put these little things out there so that we may get Robert Saleh's got something else maybe that he's got to worry about and get his team ready for, that makes it that they're taking less time on other things. And so I think that's going to be a big aspect. For me, though, it's going to continue to be all about mechanics and the way that Jalen Milroe handles pressure, because we've talked so much about coming out of the Senior Bowl with that narrow base and how he was having throws getting away from him. I think he has improved light years from where he was at then. And we've seen it even carry over a little bit into these games. His technique looks fine, and he hasn't necessarily regressed on that front. But playing an entire game, getting more reps, there's more reps for him to potentially slip back and have that muscle memory regress a little bit. So I want to see him throwing good, complete, accurate footballs with good lower body mechanics. I don't want to see balls bouncing off the turf like we've seen in the past from him, or airmailed throws. Put it in a position your receivers can make plays, and he's more incapable of doing that when he is technically sound. So I want to see how he handles all the makeup in the huddle and how he handles the mechanics with his lower body, and also just what the Seahawks are going to be doing with him in a full game. And again, I do think there's some gamesmanship that's going to be at play here that's different than you normally see. Again, Mike McDonald's normally be like, okay, Sam Darnold, one drive, let's not show too much in this drive. But Jalen Milroe, it's like, hey, that's my third string quarterback, and I want coordinators to be up at night thinking about, oh, they could do this with this guy. So I think we are going to see that some in this preseason finale in Green Bay. When we come back, there's more to this final exhibition game than just the quarterback position. Although Jalen Milroe, all eyes are going to be on number 6, but there's plenty of other players and position groups for the Seahawks to be watching closely. We're going to be diving into some key storylines for the preseason finale that'll be coming up next here on our Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Fantasy football is back. Fire up the group chat, get your draft board ready, and buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, and all the overreactions we live for. It's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, Nick and I are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. I've used Yahoo Fantasy for years and love how smooth the draft day experience is. Our Locked On League's been running through Yahoo for quite some time now because of its easy setup. They have a great mobile app, and the smack talk just hits different in the message boards, especially back in the day when the Crybaby Cutlers took home the championship. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and most importantly, more ways to win. To kick it off, Yahoo Fantasy just dropped Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo. The lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season around the corner, now's the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you can still play head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Welcome back to the Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. This is your host, Corbin Smith. He's Nick Lee. A special thanks to all the 12s who are tuning in. And thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. The Seahawks set to cap off their preseason in Green Bay against the Packers at Lambeau Field on Saturday afternoon. And Nick, this is going to be one of those games, as meaningless as preseason games are, they don't count in the standings. This is especially meaningless when you're looking at the last preseason game in a lot of ways because starters are not going to be playing, and the fact that Drew Lock is not playing. I think Seattle's got a lot of second stringers that are not going to be suiting up for this game. So this really is going to be about the backups that are further down in the depth chart, some of your rookies getting a lot of experience like Jalen Milroe. That is what makes the center position such a curiosity for me going into this game because Jalen Sundell appears to have the job, at least in my opinion. He appears to have this job on lockdown because of Oluwatimi's injury that he missed 2 weeks with. Sundell has seized that opportunity and then some. If he's going to be your starter in week 1, I find it really hard to believe that he's going to be playing tomorrow and snapping to Jalen Milroe. And Oluwatimi's just coming off the back injury. And I wouldn't be shocked if he's not playing in this game. I mean, this truly could be the Federico Maranguez and Mason Richmond Bowl with those two guys playing all the center snaps. So we might not have an idea based on what they're doing who's going to be starting at center. But I would say if Sundell is not playing especially, I'm thinking he's got to be the starter going into week 1 against the 49ers.
And that makes a lot of sense. But for Olu, it's almost like you kind of want to get out there and stop the bleeding a little bit. Because if I'm him, because I've been in that spot in like high school where, you know, I short, quick side note, I missed some time with my baseball team getting my wisdom teeth pulled out. I was an okay player, but they had a guy 2 years younger than me on the bench in my position at catcher, and I missed a couple games. Guy went like 8 for 10 with 2 home runs. That was it for me. Like that was it. So I felt that angst to like get back out there and I never really did. I mean, I played a little bit, but like that was kind of the dynamic change once they let that kid play. And so I feel for Olu a little bit there. And I would think he'd want to be out there, but also I think he also could be telling if he doesn't play because maybe they do think that it's still something of a competition. But the center position is still a fascinating one for me. One that's been a point of contention for me for many, many years now. We're going on 6 years.
Like a quarter of your life.
Pretty much. And it's since we're in year 6, post JB, 6 years post Justin Britt. So for Olu, to me, it's kind of a weird spot because, yes, technically a guy of his stature probably shouldn't play in this game, but you might want to get out there and maybe stop the bleeding if that's up to him. I guess if the coaches want to hold him out, that's up to them. Sundell certainly has done everything right. Makes a lot of sense to have him be the starter. Seems like even with Olu coming back to practice, Sundell had a lion's share, or at least a good chunk of the starting reps, and kind of what I've gleaned from the practices and certainly in Green Bay. And then kind of flipping on that too is Bryce Cabledew has really come along as and just quietly, maybe not quietly anymore, but had a solid camp, solid summer. And I am wondering with it almost looks like the coaching staff has fallen out of favor a little bit with guys like Christian Haynes and Lambeau. I'm sorry, Lambeau is bad. Like he's just not. I don't think he's NFL
he has looked terrible. Like that's the honest assessment. He has not looked good at all.
And I'm not just saying that because he's a Utah guy.
Nick, I know that any chance you have any opportunity you have to pile it on a Utah.
I know.
What's frustrating about that to an extent is like I saw some flashes when he started the last 6 games last year, particularly in the run game. But for whatever reason, he has just been behind the 8 ball basically since the offseason program opened. And for a while, he was getting the second string reps. And then suddenly, and Bryce Cabledew had a rough start to training camp. I mean, he was getting destroyed in one-on-ones. Seemed like he was having a hard time adapting to playing inside. But now it's really turned around for him in these 2 preseason games. He's been playing much better, and he's getting the second team left guard reps. So Lambeau has dropped down to third. So I think when you're looking at those backup guards, especially the fact Dalton Reisner met with the team this week too, who knows if that's going to go anywhere, but that spoke to me that the Seattle Seahawks were saying, hey, Christian Haynes, Lambeau, Cabledew, all of you guys, like, hey, we're looking for vets that we think are going to do a better job as swing guards behind the 2 starters that we have, or might even be able to push Anthony Bradford. We're looking for guys like that right now. John Benton is sending the message a little bit like, especially for a guy like Lambeau, yeah, what you're doing isn't near good enough. So yeah, go to the third string. And he's had Haynes with third stringers at times in the last few weeks. Like John Benton, if you're not getting the job done, he will yank you out of a drill, mid-drill. He has done it a bunch of times this training camp. So look, I think some of these young guys, like you need to go out and you need to play really well to have a shot at being on this roster, or even be back on the practice squad.
Yeah, and seeing a guy like him coach the offensive line and being tough on the guys, you just like that Donald Glover, like good, like they need that. And so it'll be cool to see what Cabledew can do with this opportunity, because he's played both guard spots this preseason, and so is he your best backup guard at this point? That's a legitimate question. Also, a little concerning. It's good for him. Good for Bryce Cabledew, maybe not great for the 2025 Seattle Seahawks.
That's why I just said, yep.
So yeah, that's something to watch for sure. And then kind of going on the defensive side of things as well. The pass rush, Jared Ivey's been a really nice story this preseason. I believe he is the top graded front 7 player by Pro Football Focus of any of the defenders for the Seahawks. So he's had a really nice camp, really nice preseason. And what does he look like? Connor O'Toole leads the team in pressures. So, what does that rotation look like? Obviously, it's going to be back end rotation, fringe roster guys going after the passer in this game. But Jared Ivey, I don't think it's even controversial to say at this point that he has a legitimate chance to make this roster.
Yeah, I didn't even have him on my last 5 in. I think, especially if Mike Morris is dinged up now. We don't know how significant that is, but if Mike Morris has to miss time, like Jared Ivey's the natural fill-in for him. Very similar body type, another guy that can move up and down the line. And he was one of those guys, we talked about it, like he was not counted for a single tackle in the game against the Chiefs. But when I watched the film, I just kept saying 51 is popping off the tape. And I think both the sacks that Seth Coleman happened because of what Jared Ivey did. Jared Ivey created those sacks for him. He's just been fantastic. So I think Seattle, if they cut him, they're making a huge mistake, because I don't think he gets through waivers. I think a guy like that is going to get plucked up very quickly. So, I'm going to be watching the pass rushers. I really want to look at some of those real fringe guys that truly are right on the bubble. The the Jamie Sheriffs of the world, who I want to see what he looks like in more extended action as an off-ball linebacker. Maybe somebody like a JT Singleton on the defensive line who has made strides and could be in contention, at least for a practice squad spot. Jacardia Wright. I can't wait to watch him run the football some more. Like, Seattle's got a wealth of riches in terms of backfield depth, and that's a good thing to have at that position. But Jacardia Wright looks every bit like an NFL running back to me, and I've seen him catch passes at practice. We haven't got to see that in games yet, but he is another guy that can do a lot of different things back there. So receivers, does somebody like a Ricky White III or a Steven Sims emerge in this game and then suddenly make things interesting in the back of the depth chart there at receiver? So I'm just looking at those guys. A lot of these players that are playing tomorrow, Nick, are not making this roster. We know that. A lot of the guys that are playing tomorrow, they're going to be on the pink slip line within the next 24 to 48 hours. They're going to be released. But there are a handful of guys that still have a fighting chance to play their way onto the roster. And at minimum, you're trying to really improve your odds of being a guy the Seahawks want to bring back on their 17-man practice squad, because Morangas would not count against that since he's an international prospect, but they would have an opportunity to bring back 17 guys. Help yourself out in this game. It's those guys that I believe are truly fringe guys that are truly on the bubble that I'm going to be watching closely to see who takes advantage, who capitalizes the most in this game.
Right. And it's one of those games too, where, you watch the whole time and maybe a couple guys stick out to you, and then you forget about them for September and October. But all of a sudden injuries start popping up in November, and you practice squad. Like, oh yeah, I remember that guy. He had a really good game against the Packers in the preseason. Like, let's see what he's got. This is kind of the game to kind of retain some information and some guys that you might need to stash there in the practice squad. And yeah, you mentioned Jacardia Wright and George Holani too. I mean, Holani leads the team in rushing yards, got 9.2 yards per carry, averaging 5.5 yards per carry after contact. So I
wouldn't play him tomorrow.
You're right.
I would let Damian Martinez and Jacardia Wright and Tyus be the guys that play.
Right. That's kind of what I was going to is like, he's kind of pushed himself so far to where maybe, you hold him back tomorrow. It'll be fun to see.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see that. That is maybe the thing I'm most excited about this game, is seeing who actually plays, because Drew Lock not getting any snaps, like, that does suggest to me Mike McDonald's really going to pull the strings back and say, we're just going to play the bottom 45 on a roster, bottom 50 or whatever. And everybody else, you're not playing. Don't even put your pads on, and treat it like you have a 53-man roster, but it's just backups. So I think that's probably what we'll see. But I'm just fascinated to see who actually does get snaps from those. If there's any starters or perceived starters or guys that are second teamers, how many rookies play in this game. That is going to be really something to watch in something like this, where the starters are not going to be out there. When we come back, we're going to switch gears to one of our favorite games, What's the Odds, and dish out our thoughts on percentages for a number of Seahawks-related topics. We'll get to that up next here on our Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. These days, it feels like there's advice for everything: cold plunges, gratitude journals, screen detoxes. But how do you know what actually works for you? With so much information online about mental health and wellness, it can be overwhelming to figure out what's true and what will actually help. That's where talking to a licensed therapist through BetterHelp can help make all the difference. You get real personalized guidance instead of just guessing based on something you saw on social media. I found therapy isn't just for navigating major challenges. It's also about building positive coping skills and learning how to set boundaries. I've had to work on those a lot as of late. Having a trusted professional to talk through things with can help through the noise and keep you focused on what matters most. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, serving more than 5 million people. It's easy to fit into your schedule. Just click to connect, and you can even switch therapists anytime if you need to. Talk it out with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at BetterHelp.com/LockedOn. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. Welcome back to the Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. I'm Corbin Smith. Glad to be joined by my co-host for today's show, Nick Lee. A special thanks to all the 12s who are tuning in. And thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. Seahawks capping off the preseason tomorrow against the Green Bay Packers. There's a lot of talk out there that is not related to this game, though. When you get to this time of year, it's about 53-man roster cuts, disgruntled players that want traded elsewhere, and just looking towards week one. Fans are ready for the real games to come. So we are going to break out one of our favorite games here with some interesting Seahawks topics here, a little discussion and debate. What's the odds? I will read off a Seahawks-related statement or topic, and then, Nick, you and I are going to dish out the percentage. What are the odds that that actually happens for the Seattle Seahawks? So we're going to start off, as I mentioned, this time of year, it's not always about what's happening between the lines in preseason games. In fact, most of the time it's not. So, Nick, what's the odds? John Schneider reunites Micah Parsons with Adam Durde and DeMarcus Lawrence.
Whew. Oh, cool. According to Jerry Jones, isn't it Michael Parson or whatever he said? Oh, man. This is certainly the hot topic of the NFL, isn't it? It's not.
It really does feel like a divorce now at this point.
It does. It really does. It's kind of it has a lot of the symptoms. What I am going to say, it's not zero anymore. The public posturing, of course, from Dallas is, oh, no, there's, flat up, no on trades, kind of laughable. But, it's all negotiation tactics. We know how this goes. They're going to need to be absolutely floored by an offer, Khalil Mack plus levels of a trade. Guys, I think there's probably teams out there, Seattle being one of them, that is willing to do that. I'm going to go 15% just in general of that happening. It's not zero anymore. I'm telling you that right now. Yeah. But I also want to say, I want to do a caveat to that. If there's, see if I can say this right. If there's 100% chance that Micah Parsons is traded, I'm bumping the Seahawks up to like 40%. The Seahawks make a lot of sense. But overall, in general, I'll say 15%.
Yeah, I'm going to say 10% just because, like, I think that this is heading towards an area where there's no going back, but Jerry Jones is so stubborn that I could see this just lasting forever. Well, guys, we need to bring him back. He really does sound like Mr. Garrison on South Park. I wonder if that character was made after him. But anyway, I just think that that's going to be something. It's going to be dragged out, but it is leaning more towards where I'm thinking this is going to happen. If he does get traded, I'm going 75%. And I'll tell you why. There's one reason why. Adam Durde. And he's got a big voice in that Seahawks coaching room. Like we heard about in the draft when he was sticking up for Riley Mills. And my understanding is he was big on Nick Eamon-Warrior. Like Adam Durde's got a voice. And oh, by the way, he's coached Micah Parsons early in his career. And I've heard so many people say, well, he and DeMarcus Lawrence don't like each other. They would like each other if they were teammates again in Seattle. And if Micah Parsons was getting paid $42 million a year, I think he'd be like, I'm fine with being teammates with you again. So if he's going to get traded, Seattle has as good of assets as anybody to pull it off. And I think it makes a lot of sense for them to go make that move. Next one here, let's go out of fantasy land for a minute here. What's the odds Torrey Horton finishes with more touchdown catches than Cooper Kupp?
Woo, man, if you would have presented this to me maybe 3-4 months ago, that would have been crazy. Still, Cooper Kupp has only finished with less than 5 touchdowns once in his 8-year career. And even had 6 last year when we all kind of thought he kind of lost a step, didn't have as prominent of a role in the offense, was banged up, still had 6 touchdowns. So I'm going to pencil in five touchdowns at least for Cooper Kupp this year. So basically, are you asking, is Torrey Horton going to get 5 to 6 touchdowns this year, which I think might be a bit of a tall order. And so, because I am optimistic Cooper Kupp will get to those kind of numbers, even as a secondary role. And I also don't think Sam Darnold is going to be throwing 30-plus touchdowns in this offense with this situation. So I'm going to go 25%. It's not impossible, but math isn't quite mathing for me on that one.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go with the same percentage I had on the last one. I'm going 10%, and it's not because I could see Torrey Horton having a really good rookie season from what we've seen in the practice field.
503.
Yeah, I think that Cooper Kupp is going to be a real weapon in the red zone for this team. I've seen it throughout training camp. So that's where this question comes in. I just think the receiving touchdown opportunities are going to be there way more for Cooper Kupp. And he's always been so productive in those situations. So I 10%, and that doesn't mean Horton can't have a great year. I just think Kupp is going to do a lot in the red zone to put touchdowns on the board. What's the odds? AJ Barner and Elijah Arroyo each finished in the top 5 on the Seahawks in catches.
Well, the last time the Seahawks had 2 tight ends, both in the top 5, was 2022, actually. It was Noah Fant and Will Dissly. Each Noah Fant had 50, Will Dissly had 34. They were 3rd and 4th on the team. Of course, 1 and 2 were, of course, Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. So this year, given the lack of, true upper-tier talent, I mean, JSN and Cooper Kupp are good. But, as far as it's them two, and then there's a lot of question marks under the top 2. So for that reason, basically, are you asking 3 non-Cooper Kupp and JSN receivers to outcatch 2 of the top 2 tight ends? I don't see it. I think this is 65%. I do. I just think the depth kind of fits that way, where these 2 will probably be featured fairly prominently in the passing game.
I'm going 85% because this is Clint Kubiak's offense. Clint Kubiak wants his tight ends to catch the football. We've seen that in the preseason games. We've seen it in the training camp practices. We've seen it on tape when Clint Kubiak's been coaching in Minnesota or he's been coaching in New Orleans. Tight ends are going to get the ball. And I just think these 2 guys, for different reasons, AJ Barner has really proven he is a way better receiver than any of us thought he was. And Elijah Arroyo, the dude makes one-handed catches in his sleep. I just think both these guys are going to get the football a lot more than we've seen tight ends get in the past. And I think they're going to be big parts of the passing game. So, yeah, I'm going 85% of this one. What's the odds Uchenna Nwosu matches his sacks and quarterback hit numbers from 2022?
Whew. Well, that would be 9.5 sacks and 26 quarterback hits, according to Pro Football Reference. Man, just with his health and just, I know he's kind of trending in a better direction now. He's been cleared and everything, but it's one of those things where once you get kind of that injury-prone tag on you, it's really hard to shake off. I don't think he's going to get there. I'm going to go 33%, 1/3. Not impossible, and especially with the other ones that got in the room, maybe Jadeveon Clowney still sitting out there. Marcus Lawrence, of course. I'm going to go 33%. I think he can have a solid season without reaching these numbers. But the health with the other guys in the room, not quite seeing it.
I'm going 2.5%. I just think with what they have there, and he might not play till the 3rd or 4th game anyway.
True, yeah.
We don't know when he's going to be back. I just think that would be putting way too much pressure on a guy that has had a lot of injuries. And I can see him having a very productive season once he's back. I just don't know that he can be that productive. All right, what's the odds? Byron Murphy notches a 700% increase in sacks from his rookie season. Now, Nick, I'm going to put in a caveat here. You and I had put these together, and we were like, we have to include the 700% because that just makes it sound like it's a massive jump. But we're talking going 0.5 sacks to 4. So what are the odds that Byron Murphy notches a 700% sack increase this year?
Oh, my gosh. Oh, man. I love it. It's just feels like a car sale is 700% off or something. I'm going to go. I know the fans I've seen fans on Seahawks social media asking, what about Murphy? What's going on? I'm not hearing a lot. There's some angst with getting him to that next level as a first-round defensive tackle. 4 sacks for an interior lineman of his caliber is absolutely doable. I'm going to go 50%. It's a coin flip, and with the role he plays, hopefully health is more on his side this year, and just another year of NFL conditioning and NFL coaching, and he's got the talent, he's got the tools. I could see this becoming a reality fairly easily. 50%.
I'm going to go with 40%. I think there's a good chance, a decent chance it happens, but there's just so many bodies up there. So many guys are going to have chances to get sacks. Maybe he gets to 3 or 3.5. We'll see. But I think the quarterback hits are the number that we're going to see really jump this year for Byron Murphy. And I think that would be more telling anyway. What's the odds? Nick Emanwari eclipses 70 tackles, 2 interceptions, 2 sacks. I mean, I know that seems like an insane stat line for a rookie, but this is Nick Emanwari who can do a little bit of everything.
Well, I was looking at, the guy the low-hanging fruit comparison of Cam Chancellor. His rookie season was 23 tackles, 1 sack, no picks. I know he had a bit of a different role. And then the next year, of course, was the year he took off and became Pro Bowler. So that's a pretty tall order. 70 tackles, 2 picks, 2 sacks. If Milroe just rolls out there as a rookie and has that, he better get at least a few D-Roy votes, because that's a solid season for him. I'm gonna go 30%. Another like kind of 1/3, like certainly can be talked into it. More than likely not. Just that's a tall order for a rookie, especially with the other pieces the Seahawks have on defense. They don't he's not the only guy. Certainly not in the safety room. They can bounce him around, put him in other positions of success where he maybe sucks up things that don't become stats, that creates stats for other players. So 30%.
I'm going 65%.
Whoa.
Because I think here's the reason I think this has a good chance to happen. He is going to play a lot up in the box as that third safety. So he's going to get a lot more chances to make tackles in the run game. He is going to be playing extensive snaps. They aren't going to be just rotating him in occasionally. He's going to play a lot. Mike McDonald has been blitzing him like crazy in training camp, and you can't tell me that the mad scientist is going to stop doing that in the regular season. He can't resist. It's his favorite drug. Like, I've got a really athletic dude that's 6'3" or 6'4", 230, and runs like a deer. Yes, I'm blitzing him. He's going to get a lot of chance to get sacks. And he had 3 interceptions in the first 2 weeks of training camp. He's going to get his hands on a couple footballs. So I'm actually very confident if he's healthy. That's the only thing that would stop me from saying no. Like, I think he's going to get those numbers. And like you said, that's defensive rookie of the year type numbers. But that's the kind of guy he is, in my opinion. I think he has that kind of talent. Real quick, our last one. What's the odds Reek Woolen produces 2 or more interceptions, more than both Devin Witherspoon and Julian Love?
Wow. So two more than either one of those very talented players.
Yes.
Of course, Woolen certainly had the pick numbers his rookie year. I think tied for the NFL lead.
Yep.
And 3 last year, which was tied with Julian Love. I think Julian Love's an underrated ball hawk, and Spoon, I think, is probably foaming at the mouth that he didn't get one last year. I think for that alone, I'm going to go 30%. Just because, not because I don't think he can get interceptions. I think Love is just a naturally really good ball hawk at center field player, and Spoon is foaming at the mouth to get a couple. So just for his competition is the only reason why I would say less than 50%.
Yeah, look, I think this might be the first time you and I have had the same percentage, but that's exactly the percentage that popped in my head, 30%. I think this is the year Devin Witherspoon gets his hands on a lot of picks. And Julian Love, I've learned not to doubt him at this point. And that's not saying Woolen's not going to go out and get 3 or 4 picks, because I could see it happening. Right, yeah. But I think that, 2 more than both those guys, that's a really steep situation as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, I'm not seeing that happening very much. So I'll go 30% and give it a decent odds, a third odds roughly. Anyway, as always, you can follow me on X and Blue Sky, Corbin Smith NFL. You can follow Nick at NickLee51. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Seahawks on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast to make sure you don't miss a single episode. We will have a Seahawks squad show coming your way tomorrow after the Packers-Seahawks game. Robert Turbin, Anders Hurst, Chris Crawford. We will be all jamming out after the game and breaking down everything we saw in Green Bay. Make sure that you listen in to that hour-long show and enjoy the rest of your Friday. Go Hawks.